Our team, our Western team of volunteers has been working since 2000. So I guess this is our third year. We've done over 700 quilts in the western part of the state. So we're doing good.
That's right. We do a lot of writing and they run down quickly. Well, this is the information packet that we use. When people come in with their quilts, we sit down and interview them and record the basic information on the first sheet. And then the quilts are photographed, assigned a unique number, and go over to the table to be examined more closely and documented. And the two sheets following the packet are the ones that are used to record the specific information and detailed information about the quilt. Well, once we've completed this process, we make a copy for the owner, and then the other copy goes back to Mass Quilts, and I understand the information will now be entered into a database, and it will also be used, I presume, for preparation of the book on Mass Quilts.
We do slides for the project, and then we do still photos for the public and for quick ID.
We got plenty of volunteers. That helps along. It's all volunteer. Did you have one of these to fill out?
Yes, and I've already filled that out.
Okay.
We like
I
it
wasn't
anyway.
even going to bring it, but it's the oldest one I have, so.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, my father's been doing a genealogy on our family, so I have tons of information.
I don't know if I've ever seen a form filled out this quickly.
Oh, really? Well, it pays to do homework, I guess.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
So,
This is one of those bread and butter quilts. Very much loved and very much used. Usually they're all worn out and we never get them in the project.
This quilt my grandmother made for my mother. I think when, I'm not exactly sure at what era, and she gave it to my grandmother, and my grandmother gave it to my mother, and my mother gave it to me. And unfortunately it was, I guess it's been well used. I guess that's a good thing because people liked it, but it's really falling apart, as you can see. But I brought it in just to kind of get a handle as to when it was actually made and how it was made, you know, just to get it documented. So I'm kind of excited about the whole process. My grandmother actually used it as kind of folded up as a cushion on a daybed for probably about 20 some odd years. So I think that's sort of like it's just been moth-eaten and well used. It was up in an attic for a long time. So, and my mother's been just kind of keeping it in a closet. So she gave it to me, and now I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. I was actually thinking of making it smaller, you know, getting rid of this and like rebinding it, but it may not be a good thing to do depending upon what these people tell me.
yeah, when he invented the sewing machine, to get more people to buy them, he let people buy them little by little with a payment plan. And it was kind of the first credit, and this was in the 1860s.
And this, what company was this again?
Singer.
Singer. Singer sewing machine.
Singer sewing machine.
Each of these blocks, the pieces were actually put together using a sewing machine. And I guess, you know, I don't know exactly what kind of a sewing machine you had at the turn of the 19th, you know, from the 19th to the 20th century. But that was done by machine, but the rest of this, all the, you know, the actual quilting aspect of it, all of this was done by hand. So, you know, this is the more laborious, time-consuming aspect of it. So that was actually done by hand, which is interesting. And this, you know, there's two different motifs here. One's kind of a wreath, and the other is sort of like parallel lines.
For display purposes, this particular piece, because it is a little bit heavy, get a piece, do at least a 6-inch sleeve, get some wood and either paint it or make sure it doesn't touch the actual quilt itself, slide it through and hang it up. So a piece of wood about, you know.
Right. And I should
molding is good.
I should hand stitch the sleeve onto here as opposed to machine stitch.
Yes, hand stitch it. Been in the woman's family and it's dated about 1890s, and you can tell that from all the different the fabrics. The fabrics help us date it, and there are some particular ones that make it in the 1890s with the clarets and the mornings and the half mornings, and some of the colors run through many years, but this one is just this just really helps us date it. Plus, it has conversation pieces with little things on them, shirtings, the fabrics that were used for shirtings for men's shirts over the years, and it was hand done, and it's not finished. It's just a top only, but it's in excellent condition. These are what they call half mornings. These are conversation pieces. The clarets, and they were 1890s.
When you say conversation pieces,
It's like, yeah, they have little designs in them. There's one here that has, let's open it up a little bit, that there's a dog on it and a horseshoe, which were very common in that era. These little kind of things, and I'm trying to find, there was one with a dog, but I don't know where it is now. And there were horseshoes, hammers, all kinds of what we call conversation pieces. They're still made today, actually. This is, there you go, there's the horseshoe. Those are called conversation pieces. These other little prints next to them are called shirtings, because back then men's shirts were made out of that kind of fabric.
60 by 60.
And each square is about 1.5, approximately.
I keep it on the bed. It's better to lie it flat. I usually draw the shades so it wouldn't get faded and all. But I want to enjoy it. She made 3 in all, but she made about 5 room-size braided rugs and many small rugs, braided rugs, many hooked rugs.
Any form of training?
No. She would do this by herself. She would read in a magazine and read something, and then she'd make sure that she did it by herself. She did go for some crewel lessons, but not too many.
See, it probably depended on what happened with her.
Because the teacher told her she was
if there
doing
weren't,
very
how would she
well already without even the lessons.
lining.
We brought a crewel picture too, and she kept busy. She had to have her hands moving all the time.
So I think that
She never sat still, even if the TV was
these
on. She
blocks,
was either crocheting or knitting
just
or
the way
something.
that they were doing it. Was it not? I mean, I got the about squares, that's why I'm saying.
She had a diary. She started writing a diary, a detailed diary, in 1926. And it was kept up till she died in July of 2000. And I tried reading them yesterday to find out information about the quilts and all. Very interesting, and a lot of history in those diaries.
Maybe you'd like,
I think this is
looks like bias
by supplied. I would say by supplied, yeah.
Yep, it's signed and dated. That's always nice. Makes our job easier.
It's a good example of what we call a crazy quilt.
Shows if it makes you wonder if 4 different ladies didn't work on it. I mean, there's no way of knowing that for sure, but that's what you might think. Well, I'm thinking that, I may be wrong, but I'm thinking that it was made to lay on a table because all of the embroidered figures are facing out towards the border. Like this is facing out, and the cat right here is facing this way, the owls this way, and then on this side, the little girl is facing this way, and there's another kitten this way, and then on this bottom side, everything's facing is right side up. Well, it's in really good shape, for one thing. It's in very good shape. Look at this. Now, I wonder what that is. You know why? I wonder if those are nails, because up here's the saw, and it's hard to tell the whimsy that butterflies, owls, spider webs, all kinds of designs on it. Actually, this date looks like 1838, but I don't think it's that old. I don't know. That looks like a 3, but I would believe 1888, but I don't know about 1838. I'm not sure about that. It's beautiful. It is in really good shape, though. It has a really nice back on it, too.
Well, this is a very elaborate crazy quilt. If we look at the motifs that the artist, I'll say the artist has incorporated, and consider that was all hand embroidered and very creative. And some different things, like this has been painted. There's probably some other painted ones too, which was a technique they used a lot in doing these. Here's a fabric which had like a lacy, the way the fabric was made in the manufacturing process, but all this satin stitch. And there's, I don't know all my embroidery stitches, so I don't want to get in trouble, but there are many different stitches represented. You see here is animals, of course, and flowers. It looks like a fox. Is that maybe a fox? Here's a deer, owl. Here's another painted one. You see the paint has been applied to the velvet fabric. This is very sound. Oh, and look at the backing is interesting too. It's a damask type fabric which they've used, which is a nice complement to the silks. Yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna get this. I even see a pumpkin. Look. $65.5. I'm trying to see what this was, but
It's like fabric.
swirl. It's like a balance is all I can think of. But the inscription.
Yeah, the date. Well, it says 1838. That's way too early.
No.
It could be an 8, though.
It could have been an 8. Yeah. I bet it
You can see
was.
marks in the
You
fabric.
can.
Yeah, I can
I
see
bet it
them.
was 1888.
Yeah?
That's about right. That's not a problem. So,
Good eyes. Who found that? You did.
well, I did, but they found it before. I don't think there are any other initials.
This one, it's a perfect example of a crazy quilt. Crazy quilts of that late 1800s Victorian era, and there are so many beautiful ones that exist, and that's probably pristine condition. I'm glad the museum owns it because it can maybe be seen when you have a spot to show it off in the future.
This quilt was made by my grandfather's sister, Blanche. Blanche lived in the village of Larrabee, Maine. Larrabee is up close to Machias, close to the Canadian border, right on the seacoast. And she was one of about 7 children in the family. I never met Blanche. She died before I was born. This was given to her daughter, Madeline, and Madeline's son, my cousin Richard, gave it to me to hold on to because he has no family of his own. And so I've inherited this quilt and several others from Blanche, and that's literally all the information that I have. My cousin Jane has done genealogy, and she will know more of the dates, and I'm trying to get in touch with her so that she would give me at least when Blanche was born and where and when she died, but there's not too much information on her. I've had it for probably about 5 years. I've had it with the other quilts in a zipper, like a zipper bag that you'd get a blanket in a plastic storage box.
I want to talk to you. What do you see?
Well, it's grandmother's flower garden. It's a popular pattern. And you can see in all different sizes of over the years of looking at quilts. So some of these blocks are like this. Sometimes you see them much, much smaller. But they're all really, you know, a combination of pretty prints with plain fabrics. And this one has some interesting things. And here we can see one which is very faded, so that you don't see it. It doesn't stand out as strong. And this has been used a lot, you can see that, and been probably laundered, I would think. But it's still in really pretty good condition considering. I'm just going to measure the length and width. Got the insert between the rows. Right, well, it's a half row, wait a minute now.
Strange pattern?
Not strange, but sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes if you look at the block like this, then you've got another one right next to it. Sometimes they'll put it together with the block, then it's inset another row, and I was just trying to figure out how this one was done. But this one I think is, see, from print to plain. Now you see here you have an extra one. This is going to be interesting. Because here's an extra row put in here, but they didn't put an extra row in here. Do you see that? You see that, I mean? And that's why maybe some of that stood out differently to me. You have to study it really because you've got dominant and then not dominant colors. But you see here, you go to a light one and a light, you see, center, to this, to this. Okay, there's the insert. So I guess it's a matter of color illusion or disillusion. Whichever way you want to go.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
No, I know. I wanted to see the
More often I think they're more symmetrical all over where you'd always have a... This is interesting, Amy, because look, if you go from... I was trying to study it. If you go from there to there to there, then this is the insert like. But
Yeah,
then,
they're
but the optical
side by
illusion with
side.
darks and lights makes it strange. I'm looking for my... Oh, here, this is my...
What do you do? What do you do with it now?
Right now, it's in one of those zipper bags that you get a
Plastic is bad. It's funny. Everyone comes and they bring them in plastic and they store them in plastic because they think you think you're keeping it protected. But if there's any condensation, it's really damaging to the quilt. You're much better off keeping it. Acid-free boxes are the best. Cardboard acid-free box. You can, if you have a plain white, clean cotton pillowcase, you can just keep it in that. That's better than plastic. You every time you take it out, you'll want to fold it. Try and fold it differently so that you don't develop creases. If you're going to get an acid-free box, it's good to get some acid-free tissue as well, and you can cushion the folds so that they don't crease. You could lay it outside. That's another thing that you could do on a cloudy day, on an overcast day, not when it's going to rain, not when it's bright sunlight, but on a day that there's not, or on a sunny day, but in the late afternoon. You could take it outside and let it freshen up a little bit. Obviously, light can be damaging, but on the other hand, it's if you really wanted to freshen it a little bit, you could do that. But read our little information sheet.
Yeah, thank you. This is really good. I mean, we have 3 others that we would...
The band of fabric on the top is called a breather, and she's embroidered it, but it was put there so that their husbands' beards didn't fray the quilt. And it's a great, we don't see very many of them, and it's a beautiful example. I mean, she even embroidered it.
I don't know anything about it. I bought it from an antiques dealer, and she just thought it came from Maine, and it's dated 1885, and beyond that, I don't know anything, except that it's a crazy quilt.
Crazy quilts were very popular during the Victorian era, so that's when most of these were made, in the late 1800s to the early 1900s. There's like a 30-year time span where the majority of them were made. So oftentimes they do have dates on them. It's very common to see a date on one and lots of times there's initials on them too. So
did a lot of embroidery. Some people even included articles of people's clothing, like if somebody had been to war or something like that. We found some that way too. But they did a lot of embroidering, and a lot of the symbols meant something to them. I don't know if Jane had covered that also.
A lot of times they hung them over furniture. The Victorian era, it was very decorative and very ornate, and they would put it over a piano, over a table, over the back of a sofa. They really weren't put on beds. They were used for that kind of. Some of them were made to put over a coffin when someone died.
No, it's not really developed. It's not.
But this one was probably more like the back of a sofa or a table. That's hand. Sometimes what we're looking for is if they sew the pieces together first and then embroider it, or if the embroidery holds it together. They did it in a couple different ways, and sometimes it's really hard to tell. Okay. We recommend that you get some acid-free paper, an acid-free box, because the silks that were made in that era do deteriorate, and this has started to do that, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Poor storage makes it worse, or happen quicker, and sun being out in the open air is what we recommend, because this is going to continue to deteriorate. And a lot of it is very nice and still in good condition. Is you can get some bridal tulle, and it comes in different colors, like in the bridal, the regular fabric stores. I don't know if Greenfield has it or not, but it's worth it, the textile place. And just kind of applique it over the pieces that are, so it blends in, and that'll keep it from catching on things or people catching it. And as it just shreds and deteriorates, and there's not much you can do about it. And sometimes what people do after to save some of this as it continues to deteriorate is they do, sometimes we'll make blocks and frame it, and you want to make it sure it's done with somebody who does an acid-free, and you want, the acid-free mat and the glass and to give it airspace. Some people will do parts of it that are good, but at this point you still have a good part. But putting some tulle over these deteriorated will, and then you can enjoy it, just don't put it in direct sunlight, and get some acid-free paper and a box, or put it in a cotton sheet that's been washed on a pillowcase that would be new, because even though you wash the pillowcases 100% cotton, the hair oils still stay in, so make it a new one and wash it. Get the sizing out of it.
Today we documented 22 quilts, and we've seen some museum quality quilts that we made recommendations for the quilt owners to have praised. And we also gave a lot of advice on how to store quilts. We've added 22 more to the database, so we've done Sunderland now. But wait a minute, let me see one more thing. If anybody if they missed today and they didn't get here, all they need to do is go to the Quilt Museum, the New England Quilt Museum's webpage, and upcoming documentations are listed there under Mass Quilt.